I'd like to call to order the Thursday, November 7th, 2024 Watertown Board of Adjustment. Can we get a roll call, Brandy?
Yes, Aletsky.
Present.
Dolly.
Here.
Kays.
Here.
Dargis Johnson.
Here.
Brink.
Here.
And Culhane, Ford, and Spire are absent. We have a quorum. And with that, with 5 members, that makes the quorum. For variances, we need all 5 votes. And then for conditional uses, there will be 4 for the affirmative. It's like 3.3.
The rounds up.
I thought it was a simple majority. Did that not get
Goodness.
Did we make that change? I guess that was my question. Did we make the change the last time? It said that it would be a simple majority.
All right.
Because the agenda still references the 2/3 of the present.
Yes. Yep. And I did look this up the last time, but
I just thought that the last time we had adopted the ordinance change, it had a statement in there regarding present and voting for conditional uses. I might be wrong,
for simple majority.
which would be in this situation, we have a quorum of 5. 3 votes would be the simple majority of those present
Yeah.
and voting.
Yep. If we did change it to simple majority, let me confirm here. One moment.
Yeah, we'll confirm here.
Yeah, we'll just right here.
It's new. I know that. If we did it, it was talked about.
Okay, for conditional uses. Did I skip over it? All right, conditional uses. It's kind of always hidden there. Voting. The affirmative of the majority vote of the members of the approving authority who are present and voting. So it is 3.
Okay.
I will get that changed on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Mr. Case. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I'll need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 4A is the approval of the minutes from the October 28th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Kays,
Second.
a second. Any discussion on those meeting minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are approved. We'll move on to item 5A on the regular agenda, which is a board consideration of a conditional use for a bar and tavern in the C3 district. And I'll turn it over to you, Brandy.
All right, thank you, Blake. I'll get it together here and pull up the agenda. Okay, so as stated, this is a conditional use request for the property at 909 3rd Street Southwest. It's zoned C3 Highway Commercial. Many of you would recognize it as Thunder Road, as a Thunder Road property. If you have followed the city council happenings where we have just recently entered into a new contract with new owners or a new LLC. So now what their plan for the business is to, and this is allowed per their contract, to have on-off sale malt beverage license or liquor license, whatnot, whatever they were able to acquire. But with on-sale alcohol sales, for the on-sale liquor license or malt beverage, anything, you have to have the bar tavern conditional use. So that is what is before the board here today for consideration.
Thank you, Brandy. So I noted in here, it was consistent with the lease agreement, as you stated. Even though it's in the lease agreement that was ratified or approved by the city council, it requires our approval from a land use standpoint for bar and tavern. Would they still then subsequently have to go back to council and request a malt beverage permit as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so how that works then, if the Board of Adjustment approves a bar tavern conditional use for a property, then staff is able to write a zoning verification letter that verifies with the finance department that they are good to move forward with applying for the malt beverage or liquor license, alcohol
you.
Mr.
license.
Chair,
Yes.
Brandy, so it's still going to be utilized as its current use, but this would just be an add-on function. They just have a bar or something there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a public hearing on this, so I'll open that at this time. Anybody here is to speak on behalf or against? I think we have somebody online.
Yep. Carrie, if you are able to, I believe she said her name was Carrie. You can go ahead and unmute and add
Sure,
any comments.
sure, yeah, I guess I'm just not in favor, you know, I live in the neighborhood, I've been there for, I don't know, 16, 17 years, and I just would be not in favor of having liquor sold in the neighborhood, and, you know, and then there's a potential of people leaving too, driving out potentially impaired, and I'm just not in favor of having that on my street. So, that's my biggest thing, I guess, and, you know, with the pool there too, next door, and in the summertime, you know, there's a lot of traffic around there, and a lot of kids, like I said, I've lived there for 16, 17 years, and we see a lot of kids walking from the pool, and just to have, you know, potentially somebody coming out after having several drinks would, to me, not be in a wise place to have liquor, but, so I would be, I guess, not in favor of several reasons. Number one, I just don't want it in the neighborhood, and number two, it's not wise to have it with, as many children that are there, and I don't know, why don't let a family activity just be a family activity? Why do we have to have alcohol at everything, you know, so, I don't know how much you want me to say.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Ma'am, what is your address?
727 Second Street Southwest.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, appreciate the comments.
And,
Brett-
you know, can I add one more, you know, additionally, I mean, we see a lot of people speeding by there, you know, like, I probably should have petitioned to have a four-way stop sign, I guess, on Second Street, but it's like, there's a lot of cars that go past there on 8th Avenue and Second Street, you know, going fast, and I'm like, if you start adding alcohol to the mix, I don't know, it just could be a worse situation. My own mother somebody had hit her even driving in that four-way stop sign a while back, so there was a car accident there too, but I just see it, you know, people speeding down that street so often. And it is a concern with in the summer, especially when all the kids are at the pool.
Mr. Chair, ma'am, have you been talking with any of the other neighbors? Have they been voicing the same opinion as you?
I haven't talked to any of the neighbors.
Thank you, I do appreciate the comments here in the public. I want to give the opportunity if there's anybody else here to speak on behalf or against this application.
One thing to keep in mind too is how this property, we have the commercial C3 highway, the highway commercial district right along Highway 212. And then you do with that transitionary into the residential district there to the north.
Hi, this is Josh Hansen, part of the LLC that has bought Thunder Road. And I appreciate Carrie and her concern very much, and we're very aware of those concerns and how we look at it. Is what we're trying to do is we want it to be very family oriented, obviously, but very similar to like a Dave and Buster's, a Thunder Road down in Sioux Falls that also offer, you know, on-site and beer and liquor, and we're going to be very intuitive to making sure that everybody's obviously very responsible. We know where people can and can't go if they consume alcohol. Obviously, cannot go in the go-kart area, et cetera. So we are taking care of those concerns and want to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the neighborhood, but also want to add a little bit of just resource and concession to individuals who may want to be there for, you know, an hour, 2, 3 hours, have parties, or not parties, but Christmas parties or company parties, and be able to offer those types of things to individuals. Like I said, very similar to a Dave and Buster's, a Levity up in Aberdeen, and a Thunder Road down in Sioux Falls and Aberdeen as well. All do offer those beer in beer and malt beverage. So.
Any questions?
Sir, in your business plan, then, will people be wristbanded when they enter into the facility? How are you going to distinguish the keeping minors separate from, alcohol sales?
Yeah, I mean, I would make the, without having a 100% discussion with the group on that, I think we all are very keen to just understanding how Thunder Road and Levity and Dave and Buster's do, where we know there's going to be a separation between each, and in that, we're going to make sure that those two don't commingle.
Would you have separate areas established within the event area, or would you allow alcohol usage being on the putt-putt greens when you've got a group of 8-year-olds on the same thing at the same? I mean, I think that's what I think that she's asking, is how is that going to be taken care of?
Yeah, it's going to be, I would very strict, right? I mean, we want to make sure what we are bringing is very safe and family friendly. I mean, our goal is not to be a bar and grill that's open till 2 a.m. It's just a malt beverage complement where, hey, if somebody, wants to have a drink at dinner or have a Christmas party, but we will be very keen to, whether it's wristbanding or stamping or signing some sort of documents before, whether it's going on the go-karts or the mini golf area or whatever it may be, that we are taking necessary precautions to make sure that there will be no issue and the safety is, our utmost concern as well.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you. Public hearing is open if anybody else is here to speak on behalf or against.
Just a quick question, are they gonna
Hey,
actually,
Before, could you just state your name for the record there with the microphone?
Ron Tesh, I actually own a house just a half a block north. I have renters in it, but I'm looking at a potential, okay, is this gonna bring down the neighborhood for sales? If I turn around and wanna sell this house, is this gonna bring it down? From what I gather here, are they gonna add on to this building and make it bigger? So you're talking like a Dave and Buster's, they're gonna leave it the same size?
Yeah, and that's not part of the consideration here today. It's just a question around land use.
Just what I gathered, it sounded like he was gonna add, but no, okay. And I'm with that earlier caller, I'm really concerned about the neighborhood and the driving down the street, because the kids are right there. And if you're around that neighborhood at all in the summer, there's hundreds of kids walking up and down the street there, so that's all I have to put in, so, thank you.
Yep. At this time, I'll close the public hearing.
For the record, too, the conditional use does not allow drinking and driving still.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, just to get it on the table.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Case,
I'll second.
second by Dargis Johnson. Discussion?
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Brink.
one thing that this discussion, it kind of reminds me of last meeting on our October 28th meeting. We had a very similar conditional use. It was a bar tavern for a restaurant immediately north of 212, just like this is going to kind of be half restaurant, half Thunder Road. I mean, would it be good if in the future, not necessarily this meeting right now, but if we change the definition of bar and tavern? I mean, when people hear bar or tavern, they think of shooters, and this is more of a restaurant like Applebee's or Dave and Buster's. I mean, it's not this won't get people here till 2 a.m. It's not going to be a bar per se. I mean, should there be a different definition on our books? I know that's not what we're voting on today, but it's just kind of a discussion point, because this is 2 meetings in a row where we've done a conditional use for a bar or tavern on something that's not really a bar or a tavern.
So if you don't mind, Blake.
Yep, go ahead.
So that's kind of when we allowed for the off-sale malt beverage licenses to go at retail establishments as a permitted use, then that is where we turned into, if they want to have on sale, then they have to get the bar tavern. It's just what we have in ordinance right now. But I get what you're saying, and I think that we definitely could break it down. It kind of turns into like today, people could have a liquor license through the city, but they have to have a percentage of food sales and whatnot. But we could look into that, if there would be options that, but it's just what we've been using currently for on-sale, malt beverage, consumption.
I think it is a good suggestion, and if, some of the questions that do come up is hours of operation and, whether it's ancillary to some other portion of the business, so an accessory type use, right? Which in the case of restaurants, it often is.
Well, I guess, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I mean, I do have some concern just with the amount of children in the area during the day. However, I'm hopeful that if people are out putt-putt golfing and from 12 to 2 in the afternoon, they're not loaded as well. I look at this as just another way of offering a service in this business. If the owners will find out that if the alcohol sales are diminishing the children use of that facility, they will adjust and let the economics dictate how that works. So I will be voting in favor of this, but I do have some concerns. I don't think it's a neighborhood concern, but more, just gonna have to be more cognizant of children in the areas they're walking, and so I hopefully I'm not wrong in that area, but from a business standpoint, I don't see it to be an issue.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Brandy, we do have sidewalks all the way around out in that neighborhood, do we not? I mean, I think, and I'm seeing them, but I'm not sure on 8th Avenue if there is sidewalk along the north side.
No. So the sidewalk, let me turn this off. The sidewalk does not go to 212.
But it does go all the way around the pool and then on the
Yep.
north side of 8th? No.
Nope.
Okay, there's none over
Nope,
there.
it does extend there further to the north, which that is still like city-owned property. So as far as pedestrian traffic goes, I mean, really, we really should extend that as the city.
Wow, that wasn't where I was looking at. I was just thinking kids leaving, heading out into the neighborhood, if they've got sidewalks to walk. And
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
they would into the neighborhood areas, but that actually, to me, pointed out that connection there to 212.
well, they're probably not walking to 212, hopefully, but
No, but just all around for pedestrian connectivity.
And to the west, we're moving then into what would be the industrial zoning on the west side of that road there.
Is there sidewalk on Third that goes north and, north of the pool?
So north of the pool, there is, it does not go west, which, like Blake said, that is industrial area. So not as necessary there, but yeah, as far as going into the neighborhood, they do have connectivity there going east and north.
and can you tell me where the stop signs are at? They're not on that street then? Only on Second, right?
No, they're along Third Street that runs north and south. That's a through street, isn't it? Third?
Third's a through street, but there's
Yeah.
a four-way on Second and Second.
there is. Oh, I didn't know that.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, that would maybe just be something the city consider doing, and I don't, again, if that gets into DOT, I have no clue, but
No, it
perhaps
would,
just slowing traffic.
yeah. No, definitely. So that would be, in conjunction with police and engineering for overseeing the streets, all of that. So,
Those kind of traffic studies are something that the city regularly engages with.
yep.
It could be something as simple as just repainting crosswalks on Third and, just going back and forth across the street. That way, people see crosswalks, they will slow down generally.
Yeah.
A lot of bicycle traffic and someone's going to the pool and they are going to the pool.
In terms of pure land use plan as well, this being the C3 Highway Commercial District, it is typical to see these kind of establishments in this district.
Yep.
We have a motion on the table. Is there any additional discussion before we take a vote? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
All right, Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Brink.
Yes.
5 yes, that carries unanimously. That conditional use is approved. We'll move on to item 5B, which is a variance request, and I'll have you take us through that one, Brandy.
Okay, thank you, Blake. So this
Brandy,
is,
will you share your screen real quick? Sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
yeah, no, sorry about that.
Thank you.
There you are. Okay, 12:15 8th. Let me get zoomed over there. No, I think it's northeast. Whoops. Bear with me, sorry. Okay, so that doesn't look like it wants to pull it up, so I'll just get started and then I'll pull it up. So this is a variance request for the property at 1215 8th Avenue Northeast. And let's see here for the site plan. So there's an existing home and attached garage. It is the 24 by 26 in dimensions. So the property owner and applicant would like to extend the garage to have a third stall. Currently, it's a 2-stall. Would like to extend it by 12 feet to allow for a third stall, which a 12 feet is standard for a garage stall. Today, they have, from where the garage sits, I'm going to go up here to get my dimensions that I have written out. So they had, now the house and garage were built at an angle. And if you noticed when we posted the agenda the first time, the applicant had not completed the site plan. So we used the site plan that was written on the building permit when the structure was built in 1980. So at that time, then it was actually, square with the lot, but the house was actually built at an angle. So with the current structure and the attached garage, there's 18.8 feet from the east property line on the southeast corner, and then there's 23.5 feet from the northeast corner. So with adding a 12-foot addition to the garage, then it does leave that southeast corner only 6.8 feet from the east property line, which 9 feet in the R1 district is required. On that northeast side, there is 11.5 feet, so that is sufficient above the 9 feet required. The sidewall will be 10 foot and some inches there, 1 1/8 inch. You can have, with an attached garage, you can have that be 35 feet in height. Obviously, this is a 1-story house, so the applicant is not proposing that. And then he just also plans to extend the length of it so that overall this will be about a 456 square feet addition to the home, which together then comes to a total of 1,050 square feet. So that is under the allowable attached garage maximum size of 2,352 square feet. The lot size is conforming in the R1 district. And kind of the reason too, like I said, with the revised site plan, that is when we amended the agenda because the property owner was able to get accurate setback dimensions that we did not have previously. We have the perspectives here of the side view and the front view. And with that, anytime, let me just add too with the International Residential Code and and between the International Fire Code too, you have to have 10 feet of separation between adjoining properties. So that ends up being a minimum of 5 feet for each property. So with it being at 6.8 feet, we are still meeting that requirement, but it's just up for the board's contemplation of what will be allowable. You can, if a structure is closer than 5 feet to the adjoining property line, then you have to have 1 hour firewall protection on exterior walls. But otherwise, you actually can have 0 foot separation per the IRC. So with that, I will stand by for any questions.
And in terms of our code specifically, we do have some caveats to that for some of the older lots in town prior to 2005, correct? Where if the lot is less than 75 feet in width, we can go down to, at minimum, 6 foot
Yep.
separation. But this does not qualify for that because this is 95 foot in width, correct?
Yep, and it's also zoned R1, so we
The
only allow
caveat
that
in
in R2A.
The caveat on that in the ordinance book shows in both R1 and R2A. That subtext note.
Okay.
Was that changed? Because
That must be,
I looked
I-
today, and I thought it was R2A only as well, but it was showing for R1 as well.
Well, must have been interpreting this long for my 8 years here, or this
I think it's
wrong for this long.
up just a little bit from there. The side yard setback table.
Okay, up, you want like up here, when you
Yeah.
go, so there's not a footnote?
There's footnote D there in R1 single-family dwelling unit, 9 foot C and D. And D is what talks about that 75-foot width and platted before 2005.
Is that news to you, Carla? Why, in my mind, it was just R2A.
I think we've been applying it to both lots, depending on the size of the lot. I think just traditionally, you know, all the R1s are going to be meeting that 75-foot. It's rare that it would need to be utilized in an R1. We mostly only see it in the R2A.
Yeah,
And it does have the date requirement there, so
Right.
it's only for lots platted prior to
Up on 10th
2005.
Avenue.
So,
very interesting though.
Only for lots that are less than 75 according to the ordinance. This is 95 or 94.9.
Okay, Mr. Chair, what happens when there's a fence right on the lot line? And, you know, for firewall protection and all that stuff, it doesn't, it's going to get right up to the fence, right?
6.8 feet.
Yeah, the fence doesn't have to have fire protection. And that is right here now, Blake, with the reason why everything prior to 2005 is what's applicable is because anything that's platted today is meeting that 75 feet.
Yeah. There's probably only a handful of lots that would fall within that caveat.
Yeah, and R2A already allows for that. Meetings on Thursdays.
We do have a public hearing on this. I will open that at this time. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of this application today?
There, I'm Dale with Heilman Homes. I'm here in behalf of Ketwig. They weren't able to make it. They had other engagements, so I'm here and they're, we're just, one of the things is if the lot was straight on the lot, or if the house was straight on the lot, it would have fit, they would have had enough room. The other part is that the existing garage is so small, so they'd obviously like another garage. It would obviously help the property value for them also. We wouldn't be exceeding the driveway width, as the city ordinance says we can only be 36 feet on the street, so we wouldn't be exceeding that either. And looking at some of the stuff around there in the neighborhood, it looks like, there's 3 sides around him. And this is going off a Google map. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It looks like, properties on 3 sides of them are actually over the 9 feet also. So, I don't know how accurate that is, but, that's kind of our point anyway.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I've got to ask the question, I know they're looking for a 12-foot addition. Can you explain to me why a 10-foot addition would not work?
10-foot would be awful tight for a car, you know, a normal garage is 12 feet. We could, you know, we've talked different scenarios, we've talked about jogging that garage back 2 feet. That would gain them another like 2.5 inches. You know, so we're not against, you know, taking 6 inches off for a little bit to not take as much of the side yard, but we'd like to get as close to 12 as we possibly could.
Thank you.
Did you calculate the distance you'd have to set it back in order to be the full 9 foot?
I did, and it's 23.5 feet. I'll show you the rendering. I just did that before.
I came up with 18, but mine was a little rough.
Yeah, I just knew it was 2 inches and 2 feet, so you could probably multiply that by that and get the right number.
Now, if you were to combine those garage doors and do a double garage door with one of the existing stalls, could you not get by with reducing the 2 feet and then still fit 2 cars through there?
Yeah, you could. It would still be tight. You know, it would be tight. We don't do a lot of houses anymore with one big door. You know, people like to have the individual doors. And since it's already on the existing house, we wouldn't be, you know, having to tear that all apart also. And we did think about that also.
So in terms of the hardship here and what you're asking for a variance on, can you put it into words in terms of what the hardship is?
The hardship would be that their existing garage is really small. Their other hardship is if the house was on the lot straight, they would have enough room. Obviously, in the back corner, they have more than enough room. Yeah, that would be their defense, I guess.
Additional questions from the board? Thank you, sir.
I have one. Is there any way that they could, if they could have more garage space, just do a 4-stall tandem and just go another 24 feet by 24 feet behind the garage and go that way? Would that work?
No, it's just not very usable that way, because then if their daughter or somebody's parked in the garage, well, then that vehicle is tied up and you have to pull out a vehicle and pull a vehicle in. Yeah, so that's why they weren't interested in doing that, so.
Randy, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What is the, I know I read a letter, but what is the setback of the property immediately to the east, to that fence line? How far are they separated from the fence line? I guess it would be the,
I think I put that in the staff
I think you did, I
report.
just couldn't remember off the top.
Yeah, I'd be curious what that is too.
And I can't remember either,
And I thought I seen like 17 feet.
unless I got rid of a structure.
The Danforth property, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I had it, so I thought I included it. I had it from the west and the east, actually. I think they're like 24. And they have, so that property, actually,
That's a rear yard, though?
no, it's a side, because they have double frontage, so they could actually be 9 feet. But I believe that it's around that 24. From here, it's showing like 22, but I'm pretty sure on the building permit that it is 24.
But they could theoretically add a 15-foot extension to the west, and they would comply with 9 feet, if it's 24.
You're talking,
I know we're doing math on the spot, I'm sorry.
this is Danforth. So you're
I
talking-
just wasn't listening.
So you're talking where is the 24 at?
Over here.
Oh, on the,
Say that again, now Todd.
I'm just saying, it's 24 feet, the Danforths are 24 feet off their property line. They theoretically could add 15 feet and still meet a 9-foot setback.
Correct.
Because it'd be treated as a side yard setback for them, yeah.
but then on the other side of Danforth, are they too close to the property line on the other side?
Most likely not. They're most likely 9 feet, but GIS can be skewed to see
Yeah.
where that
Yeah.
shed is. I thought I had their building permit in this, and I thought, let me pull up their building permit.
That is one of the big challenges with those corner properties is, I mean, you got double frontage there and then your rear yard and side yard is treated as a side yard.
You got 25 feet instead of 9.
And all of the homes are on an angle on the lot because the street runs.
Brandy, when you did your calculation there, did you calculate the amount of square footage that this would be encroaching within the setback?
No, I did not. But I probably can here.
You said it was 23 is the figure that you came up with?
Yeah, 23 and a half.
So it'd be roughly 25 square foot.
And honestly, I'm not gonna pull up that building permit because that north side doesn't matter in our case here, and because of where that landscaping is.
Yeah, it's not really
Irrelevant.
necessarily germane to the discussion,
Yeah.
I think, here. Was there any other questions here for the representative of the applicant?
I think it'd be a little less than 25, but yeah, probably close to that.
We can call it between 20 and 25.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I do have the public hearing open if there's anybody here to speak, either on behalf or against.
Actually, I cannot move out of the way.
Ready, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
My name is Mike Danforth. The couple over here, Nathan and Bailey. Nathan is my son, and they're new to this home ownership, and this is their first home that they've purchased. They got their letter regarding the variance request, and then I think just late as yesterday, I believe, got the final detail, if I remember right. I'm here to speak on their behalf in order to assist them through this process. This is all new, it's all Greek to them. So we've kind of went through an ordinance 101, so to speak, in some of our conversations. So I'm here to help them. I do want to preface my being here. I was hesitant at first. It's a little awkward as being a city council member, but I'm also, first and foremost, I'm a citizen. And so we have the right to be here to address issues, and they have the right to have the most effective representation that they can. So as I'm here, I'm not asking for any favors. I don't mean to put anybody in any awkward position. I respect the job that you do, and I hope just everybody understands that. Okay?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comments there, and I fully agree. You have the absolute right to be here representing outside of your role as city councilman.
I had asked Ms. Anton here how we get our letter into the record, and she suggested that I read it, if you're okay with that, Mr.
Yep,
Chairman?
absolutely.
Okay, it'll just take a minute. So this is to the Watertown Board of Adjustment members from Nathan Bailey Danforth. It's regarding the Ketwig side yard variance request. Our names are Nathan and Bailey Danforth. The home we own and reside at is located at 805 13th Street Northeast. Just so you know, it's the Lot 6 there that as referenced on the screen. In viewing the enclosed pictures, and did all of you get the email and the pictures and the letter and such? Okay. So I'll just be referencing the pictures that you have. What's that? Okay. All right, so in viewing the enclosed pictures as well as the documents provided by Mr. Ketwig, you will see that the requester's east side yard abuts our backyard. In most cases, residential backyards abut a neighboring backyard, each of which has a minimum of 25 feet required setback. Those setbacks in total provide for significant open space for each property owner to enjoy as intended in part by the establishment of ordinance setbacks. Approving the variance and thus the garage addition would justifiably exacerbate an already shortened spacing between our home, due to the side yard, rear yard scenario. While approval would certainly be a benefit to Mr. Ketwig, it transfers any hardship per se onto this couple, and thus is detrimental to our use and enjoyment of our backyard and the open spaces that are intended by ordinance. In our opinion, the variance request does not meet the standard of hardship as required by state statute and adopted city ordinance as noted in Title 21, and then I go on to the sections and such. In fact, Mr. Ketwig's variance application failed to specify the special circumstances or conditions that would justify approval of this variance request. Denying this application does not and will not deny the applicants the reasonable use of their property as they and all previous owners have enjoyed. As we heard tonight, that home was built in 1980, so it's been 45 years that people have owned it, enjoyed it, and had reasonable use of it. Approval of the applicant's request by not meeting the required criteria as a hardship challenges the credibility of all ordinance setback requirements and supports the future granting of unjustified requests of this nature. For these reasons, we respectfully seek the board's denial of this application. Thank you for your consideration and understanding of our opposition to this variance request. So if I can, what I'd like to do is I'm going to just talk to a few points of interest from our end. I'm not going to shed any light on anything that you don't already know, but for their sake, for Mr. Ketwig's sake, for the public's sake, I'd like to just speak to a couple issues. As I started looking at this, and the one thing that we talked about and I shared with them is what Mr. Ketwig could do without any variances. So we talked about that. Their concern, without question, as referenced in that letter, is the fact that you got your rear yard, which is their living space, their outdoor living space, which is 20 feet, 22 feet from the property line. And then currently now, there's another 18 feet, so it's 40 feet. And it'll come down to just that 8 feet now. That becomes a wall that's that much closer, and you got a 15-foot high building that's going to be there to the top. So that starts to encompass and intrude upon what our ordinances seek in regards to open spaces. And as I started to look at some of this, I tried to find out why we want open spaces and why we define that as far as its purpose within the ordinance. I really couldn't find that, but here's what I did determine. While this isn't the sole reason, it is part of a reason why we do certain things. For example, we regulate lot coverage, how much structure can go on a lot. We regulate the max height of buildings. We regulate the height of a fence in a residential area to 7 feet. Why do we do these things? But we also have property setbacks. And in part, all of those things are in place, have been a long-standing requirement to a great extent, with great emphasis, that we want to establish and preserve open spaces, especially in our residential areas. In Title 21, Chapter 21.60, there is that heading for that particular chapter is restrictions that govern yards and open spaces. So we even have a chapter that says we want open spaces. Under that, there's a subsection which is 21.6001, and I'll quote exactly what it says in there. It says, all required yards, and it has setbacks in parentheses, shall be open unoccupied space extending from the natural ground to the sky with no obstruction whatsoever. That's telling me that open spaces is important to us in our development. So as I look at this, I know it's been said that, you know, from a building code standpoint, things could be met with a firewall. Well, if we're willing to do that, and then we should be changing our ordinance, and that should be an option for anybody and everybody, not just here. Then it should be an option under side yard, in this case, side yard setbacks. You can either go the 9 feet or put a firewall in, you can go 5 feet. Okay, I mean, really, that's what we're saying. It's been said that the justification here is the fact that the house is skewed on the property. Well, there's two things with that. Number one, it's been lived in for 45 years with every reasonable use of the property. And that decision by somebody was 45 years ago. That was a decision that somebody made to put that, place it in that manner on that lot. So to me, that's not contrary. The other thing that I heard said today is that by making this addition, it improves or increases the value of Mr. Kedwig's home. And under no condition can that be an element of our consideration in approving this. So we have ordinance language that says we do want to establish and maintain open spaces. And part of that is with our setbacks, and we have ordinances that say you must show a hardship. And I don't think simply want is a hardship. Convenience cannot be classified as a hardship, nor can profitability. So for those reasons, you know, they are asking you to consider their concerns and to deny this application.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mike, I'll ask you and then you can do that. You heard me before talking to the applicant's representative that if we went with a 10-foot wide structure there, that would be an encroachment of 2 inches into the variance required 9-foot setback. They weren't actually open to it, but if that was a peace offering to allow these people still to build a 10-foot by whatever, 10 by 38, the encroachment would be 2 inches. Would that 2-inch encroachment be a deal breaker for your children?
Do you want me to speak on your behalf?
You can speak and then we can
'Cause I-
speak. You can go and then we can go.
I mean, they theoretically, if they went 9 feet and 10 inches wide, they would still meet it, and I don't think anybody would
Correct.
know the difference whether it's 9 feet, 10 inches, or 10 feet.
I would agree with that, Todd, but that's their decision.
Is it on? Yep. I don't know how to work this stuff. I think it's definitely more reasonable, but I mean, still regardless. I mean, that's our whole backspace, living space. I mean, look at our yard. It's not a whole lot. We already can sit on our deck and hear their entire conversation, you know what I mean? We sit on our deck and see their entire garage as a wall already. So I think anything regardless is still not ideal in any situation, truthfully.
But we acknowledge that 9 feet, 8 inches would be a legal thing. They wouldn't even have to come and talk to
Correct.
us for.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I'm Bailey Danforth, sorry.
Thank you. You did mention, Mike, that you had kind of a crash course in ordinance. Did you review the fact that these corner lots are, from an ordinance standpoint, have no rear yard setback, right? They have 2 side yard setbacks.
You're right. We talked about what would normally be, you know,
Which
what we have is
would be 18 feet would be the natural separation between
for
structures.
side yards, correct.
Yeah.
It's a 50.
But in practicality, it's it's their rear yard,
Yeah.
right? From a setback standpoint, it's classified as a,
It's just a challenge that every corner lot owner in town has with their lot is they have two frontages technically, and they do have two side yards and no
Yep.
traditional rear yard. And in some cases, it can be nice to have that front yard space. I know it represents challenges in the rear yard though.
Yeah, and that's, because it's more so it's allowing them to, because they have to have 25 feet, 25-foot setbacks in the front yard, that then it just gives them the capability to use the same setbacks as everybody else when they have one front yard and a rear yard. But then you see how, homes that are designed, and usually corner lots are larger, so that they can have a larger side yard that they can utilize as the rear yard, because obviously that is the gathering space versus front, you're not as accustomed to hang out in the front yard. And it's just not as safe either for children and whatnot.
This property being a little bit older, I imagine it was built around the same time frame in the 80s, right? They're not quite as large as what we're seeing today being built, not as small as what we see in the R2A, the older part of town, but still have some challenges in terms of lot space.
Mr. Chairman, do you have additional item on your agenda after this one?
We do not.
Is it possible for us to take a 2-minute break and where the three of us can talk? Would you allow that?
I'm amenable to that.
You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a 2-minute recess.
Okay, I got a question.
We really can't be talking about.
We can.
rather not have a setback and just make it, or make it, you know, if we
I'll bring us back out of recess now.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that, our ability to do that. Obviously, the concern that they have is what their view is when they come out and that's all they see is a 38-foot-long garage there. That's their concern. But looking at this, you know, they'd certainly like to see that shorter. But that's up to Mr. Heilman and Mr. Ketwig as to what they ultimately do.
And unfortunately, the shortening of it, that's on the end where they have plenty of space there, right? It's on the front end where
Right.
the actual
Right.
encroachment would be.
Yeah. From the sake of being good neighbors and reasonableness, that 2 inches isn't gonna make a difference. And they're willing to accept that as long as that's what it is. That enables them to go the 10-foot, I believe is what you said?
That was a proposal.
Or something really close
What I
to
was
that.
talking about, yeah.
Right. So the 2-inch encroachment, because we gotta keep in mind, it overhangs are not included. They're remiss from calculation within those side yards. They're okay. So it's not just that wall, it's the wall and then Lord knows what the eve is. Typically they're, what, 18?
Yeah, we would probably make that only 12 inches.
Okay. So, you know, so it is more than that. And so, but anyway, we have talked through it and they would be accepting of that 2 inches and not be a problem.
I would prefer to go a route something like this than to say deny it and then ultimately have them push it back the 20 feet and then you're looking at it extending even farther into the rear yard.
That's exactly what we talked about back there is that, so.
I appreciate the comments. If there's anything else to add in the public hearing while it's open. Okay.
That's all from my standpoint. If there's no questions or whatever, we'll wait and hear.
Questions? Okay. Thank you.
Dale wanted to add,
Yep, I do still have the public hearing open.
I was just gonna basically state I was basically gonna state what Danforth had said already, that, yeah, they could go back. I mean, if we went back to the setback, I mean, they could go back, you know, they could make that 60-foot deep, even if they, you know, if they kept the 9-foot setback, I mean, they could go to the front of the garage and they could go back, you know, 60 feet along the back, and that isn't, the Ketwig's intention is to block their view. It isn't. Their thought was that there's a fence there already, so that's part of it. You know, but, and then that isn't their intention to go back further. It isn't. It's just a statement, basically.
Hey, Dale, why is it gonna be, the roof line is what I'm looking at. Why is it gonna be almost 15-foot sidewall? Because of the roof line?
That will be to the peak, and and their existing garage, so it wouldn't be any taller than their existing garage. So it would be the same height, and we could, you know, we can turn that roof line a different, we could turn it the other way too. We did this just to give it more curb appeal. But yeah, so that 15 feet, that's to the peak of the house. Yeah,
Okay.
the garage,
Okay,
the
thanks.
garage walls themselves, I think are right at 9 feet.
yeah, and I have that exhibit pulled up. Just something that I wanted to add to as far as with the setbacks that they go, you know, the further it goes back, the more privacy or separation that kind of, or just separation that it provides. The other thing is that if they did push this garage back further, that then they would have a driveway here where in turn may be a vehicle. So, what?
Or a boat or a camper or.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of a matter of having a enclosed structure versus outdoors, just all of that, taking that into consideration.
Because parking pads, as the ordinance governs it, could be right up to the lot line, and you could park next to the garage, RV, boat, whatever you have.
I mean,
Yep.
one of Ketwig's family, their comment was they went back further with that garage is because they hear the neighbors too. So by going further, it would hopefully block some of that too, you know, as far as hearing everything in everybody's yard. But I mean, and they're willing to work with work with the neighbors too, and,
Yep.
so,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, at this time, I'll close the public hearing. We do need a motion for action on this.
I'm going to start by offering a motion to approve a 2/10 of a foot variance on the, I'm going to call it the south side of the property, so that the building would be 10 feet by 38 feet wide. I'm just going to throw that out there for conversation and see what happens from there.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the motion.
Well, the motion would be, I mean, their request is for a 2 foot, 2/10 of an inch variance.
Yep,
I'm offering to make a motion for a 2/10
2/10 only,
of a
okay.
only,
Yep.
thereby reducing the size of the structure to a 10 by 38. Just for this, just to get it off to see where, and we can see where we go from there.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
I don't think I'm following that. So what would the side yard setback be? Just, is it 9, you want to keep it to be like
would be ni- it would-
8?
It would be 9 feet, right? Or 7 feet?
8.8 feet.
8.8 feet, sorry.
8.8 feet?
8.8 feet.
Okay,
We'd be 2.4 inches off of the,
Yep,
but a side yard setback of 8.8 feet
yes, thank you.
on the southeast corner.
Thank you very much. You're much better at it than I am. I can't do math.
I'm working on that.
Okay, yes.
so 8.8 versus the
8.6,
ordinance
7.
allowed 9 foot.
Right,
Yeah.
and that would be, and just for discussion purposes, and if it gets a motion and it fails, somebody wants to do something different, we can go from there.
I did hear a second from Brink, and you understood the motion, Mr. Brink?
Yeah, I think so. So it makes sense to me what Todd was saying.
Did you have any other comments to add?
I know it doesn't give them the full width that they're looking for at that location, but if they want to go bigger than that, they have the option to go further to the north and build back there. I guess that's kind of,
As long as they don't exceed the 2352
exactly.
max square footage or area.
And I don't think they would.
We do have the public hearing closed at this time. Any additional comments from the board before we take a vote?
Well, yeah, quite a few. I have a hard time approving these when we do it in an R2 lot. When we do it in the smaller, older part of town, I'm forgiving, I'm understanding that there's reasons we do it. We are opening a can of worms, and now we're negotiating, and that's not what we do. I'm not going to ask them to build it differently than what they've asked for the request. If they want this garage and need this garage, they can pull it up, bring it out even with the house, or they can push it to the back. We have a 95-foot lot here, right? 95. We do this one, and we might as well camp out here. We'll be here every day, every week on these bigger lots. This is a residential neighborhood that has a decent-sized lot. I'm sorry if the garage, the two-stall, isn't enough, but there's a lot of homes that just have just a two-stall garage in this town. The third stall doesn't make or break if it's going to sell on the market, so I'm not going to buy that one. And I'm not going to start sitting up here every week redesigning somebody's home so it fits and works, because that lot is just not big enough. We don't have any more land to sell with this, and we're not going to. These two owners are not going to be the owners here in the next 100 years, 40 years. So for us to start negotiating and making deals with the devil just so that we can get a third stall on this garage or on this home, I don't want to say this, but if the two-stall doesn't work for you, perhaps you just need to find a different home. And I love my home, and if I didn't have the third stall, I'd be just sick to my stomach. I don't want to move. I get it. But I am not anyway going to support variances on a decent-sized lot. Those lots that we do it on are in the R2 zoning.
And I kind of agree with you that we should try to keep this. But I'm just looking at it, if they built a 10 by 10, which would be generally okay, except it's 2 inches short. And to me, in the life, 2 inches is a rounding error on a lot this size. That's just where I'm at with it.
Any other comments before we take a vote?
Or if anybody wants to offer something else.
I'm in agreement with Rhonda. And, you know, I understand you got to work with what you got. And if they wanted extra stalls, the tandem garage stalls are pretty darn nice. You just have to work around it.
I just was, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was just looking at it from the perspective that I think what will end up happening is they won't build the 12-foot side, but they're going to stick it further to the north, which is going to encumber their neighbors' vision looking further to the west. And I think that's probably what they would like to see least. And so I thought this would be a good compromise. And that's the only reason I threw out the 10-foot.
Mr. Chair, they can also come to the street, Todd.
If they come closer to the street, that would be within the encroached setback. Because that's the difficult area.
Not if they come even with the house,
How do they come even with the house?
the front of the house. They can come forward with their garage and they just hand them it backwards.
Oh, you're saying with the existing footprint in the garage? Yeah,
It's just going that way with,
Right.
and then having, I get it, yeah.
yeah.
So it still can be done without threatening me that it can still be brought to the front. There's options. No, I mean, but I didn't mean it that way, but I mean, there's other options on this lot if the 4-stall is an absolute needed thing. I'm sorry, it's just, I'm not going to start doing this to R1 lots.
Last chance for questions, comments? Okay, we'll take a vote. This requires unanimous, right?
Yes. Dargis Johnson.
No.
Case.
Yes.
Dolly.
No.
Aletsky.
No.
Brink.
Yes.
2 yes, 3 no. That motion fails. Variance is denied. We'll move on to open public comments, item 6 on the agenda. Is anybody here to speak on an item that wasn't on the agenda tonight?
I don't believe so.
Item 7 is new business. Do we have any new business?
None that I have, but I guess maybe I'll just say that in speaking and talking with like setbacks and whatnot today with the variances, I do plan before the end of the year to bring forward some residential height and placement regulations as an ordinance amendment. That we can look at, and then obviously, these are things that we've kind of been working on throughout the year, but just want to get it buttoned up. As you notice that we brought the non-residential height and placement regulations through a couple months ago. So we will be looking at that and some different options kind of in the research that we've done. So,
Do you know when about, which meeting you're going to do that?
well, hopefully the
before the end
first
of the year.
meeting in December for Planning Commission.
Okay.
And then, because I want, and then 2, new business, and I sent you guys an email, but the mayor will be making appointments for the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment at the first city council meeting in December. So obviously, I want the current board's input. So that's the catalyst really behind trying to get that portion of ordinance to you guys, because you are very familiar with it and have been working with it for X amount of years. And so that is something, then the new members, their terms would become effective that first meeting in January. But then we'll find out more, and hopefully if you guys are interested in staying on the board, that you contacted the mayor, and then he will take all of those applications into consideration. But also for a plug for the public, if anyone else is interested in being a part of this wonderful board, that to please apply, and you can do that on our website. Otherwise, do contact, City Hall, and we can make sure to get you to the right location.
Perfect.
Are you saying that it'd be just board discussion at the first meeting in December and then some?
I was thinking about that. What I need to do is finalize it tomorrow so I can get it to staff. And then depending on what staff, we've looked at it previously, but then it's been put on the shelf for a couple months. So kind of however long it takes staff to feel confident about it before we would present it to the board is where my goal would be the first meeting in December, but for sure that we would be taking action on it by the end of the year.
Yeah, I would just like
My
some-
point was that we were going to have a conversation before we go to public hearing. That was my question. If
Yeah.
the planning commission will kind of talk, what you tell us what you think's good, and we kind of give you direction, and then you come back at a subsequent date for a public hearing.
I think it will take some time to digest it from our perspective as well.
Yes, no, and that is for sure. So I would hope to almost have it in front of you guys at the end of November and then be able to take action on it in the first meeting in December. But like I said, that's all a matter of that's maybe aggressive. But we do still have an additional meeting to work with there. But I definitely do want to get it in front of you guys for discussion purposes, before we would take action.
Do we have just the one meeting in December, or with the holiday? I can't remember how that works.
We are able to have 2.
We are, okay.
Yeah, we're coming on Christmas here. We're going to meet. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's the 21st. Let me check. Yeah, so we will have it December 19th. So the week before Christmas where it falls.
Okay. Any other new business?
None that I have.
Any old business?
Nope.
Take a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
A second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you guys